my name is Carmen Ferguson. I've lived in Galena since 1982, so quite a long time. And I'm originally from British Columbia, but I've been involved in the natural food movement since I was a young woman. Before I worked as a manager of a natural food company in Boulder, Colorado, I was a macrobiotic. And as a macrobiotic, I learned how to cook vegetables and grains. And I realized that there are a lot of people who don't know how to cook. And the pandemic has brought us to the place where we have time to cook. So I thought I would do a little primer on making soup. And so today I've prepared ingredients to make both a kale, white bean soup, and a chicken vegetable soup. I'd like to show you how to make mirepoix. It's a fancy French name, but it's a basic which I use all the time. And it's basically you create a base with onions, celery, and carrots. I make the celery kind of small. Now there are a few vegetables that you really should buy organically, and one of them is celery. Okay, now I'm going to peel some carrots. Now I've got everything organic except the onions and garlic are not organic. Okay, so I just peel the carrots. Some people don't peel their carrots. I don't like the skin on them, so I always peel my carrots, but you don't have to. Now I'm going to cut the carrots, and I'll cut the carrots about the same as I did the celery. I'm going to show you how to do an onion. And I cut off the ends. Now sometimes it's very hard to peel them, so I oftentimes will cut the onion in half because it seems to be easier. Now this onion has some problems. And so I just take off what I think are not good parts of the onion. And sometimes, especially at this time of year, onions they've been sitting around for months and months since last fall. So they're really pretty good, but you still need to peel the bad stuff off. Okay, so I've cut it in half. Now for soup, we dice the onion. Okay, I need to take a bowl to put these onions in. And then in a moment, we're going to go to the stove. Now, I've prepared most of the kale, and kale is so healthy for you. But it's another one of those vegetables that you should get it organic because they use a lot of pesticides on it. So what I do is I don't use the tough spine here. And I found that this is as quick as using the knife to cut it. It comes off, and when you're harvesting a lot of kale, you want to be able to just strip it. If you want, you can use spinach. Spinach would work just fine. Or another green, just to get greens in your soup. Now, I like kale, and I like it in a soup because it cooks a little bit longer. So you just strip it, and then you cut it in strips. And you can basically use the vegetables that you have for a vegetable soup. But start with the mirepoix and you're in good shape. So I have a last little thing that I'm going to put in the bean kale soup, and that is garlic. So I learned that this is a very good way to loosen the skins, because it is kind of hard to peel garlic sometimes. But this makes it fairly easy. I'm going to add garlic to the mirepoix for the vegetable soup, and I'm not going to add it for the chicken soup. And I want to chop it fairly fine. I don't want big chunks of garlic in my soup. Now we're going to go to the stove. So I put it at medium strength, my stove. Oops. Then I've already put 2 tablespoons of olive oil in each of the pans. Now I make a lot of soup at a time because I like to freeze it. So now we've got, I'm going to do mirepoix, the vegetables for the chicken soup, and I'm doing a double helping of onion. So I'm doing 2 cups of onions, and for the vegetable soup I'm doing 1. Now we don't want to let these brown. So you just stir it around to coat the vegetables in olive oil. Okay, I always like to cook my onion a little bit before I add the carrots and celery. Okay, so those are cooking now, and I'm just going to do 1 cup of carrots, making a regular mirepoix. 1 cup of carrots. One cup of celery. So just stir this, and you don't want to let it brown. It's going to cook for about 10 minutes, and I'll put a timer on. Now the vegetable soup, like I prepared garlic for it, so I'm going to put the garlic in now. I've cooked the onions a little bit till they're a little bit transparent. Now I'm going to put more vegetables in my mirepoix for the vegetable soup than I did for the chicken soup. And so again, you can adjust it depending on what you have in your kitchen. So I'm actually doing the same amount of celery and carrots as I did onions for this. And I also added 2 garlic cloves. Okay, now we're just going to let this cook a little bit. And you need to stir it. You do not want to let it brown. So now I'm going to Actually, I don't put the kale in until later. But I'm going to actually cut some parsley for the vegetable soup. So just chop the parsley. I always wash it as well. Now, I know that some people use the stems, but I don't. So it belongs to my compost. It's sizzling very nicely, but it's not browning. So if it does start to brown, I'm going to lower the heat. But so far, so good. Now, I'm going to go to the refrigerator and get my stock. I also have the chicken stock that I made, and the chicken, but I want it in smaller pieces, and so I'm going to chop it up a little bit here. And I actually didn't cook it quite long enough in the stock, so I'm going to make sure to cook it longer this morning. So I just don't like big chunks of food in my soup. Okay, now I'm going to add the chicken stock and the veggie stock, and I'm adding 4 cups. 4½ cups. 8½ cups of veggie stock. And I added 7 cups of chicken stock to my vegetable chicken. Okay, now I'm going to just bring these stalks to a boil. So I'm going to turn it up. I'm going to add, because half a teaspoon to each of these soups. Now I use Himalayan pink salt because it has enzymes that normal salt doesn't have. So I'm going to put in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of thyme in the vegetable soup, and maybe half a teaspoon in the chicken soup. I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of basil in the chicken soup and 1 teaspoon in the vegetable soup. Okay, now I'm going to turn this down again because the chicken vegetable has come to a boil. And I'm going to add the chicken to the chicken vegetable soup. And this is going to be very chickeny. I'm putting a lot of chicken in here. But as I said, I freeze this. And it's so nice. I've brought so many friends chicken vegetable soup. Okay, now I'm going to add the kale to the vegetable soup. Okay. Now I'm going to add my parsley to this soup. Okay, I'm going to bring it to a boil again before I add the beans, because the beans are already cooked. I'm going to put a little bit of crushed red pepper because I think this is hot. I'm going to put half a teaspoon, and now see, they've got all the seeds in it. So if it's hot, it's going to be hot. So I put half a teaspoon. Usually I will mince half a cayenne pepper, say, and put it in, but that's up to you, how you can handle heat. Okay, it's coming. Yes, so I think it's not boiling yet, the vegetable soup, but I'm going to go ahead and add the cannellini beans. Cannellini beans are Great Northern beans. They're a white bean. So now basically, I just want it to heat this, basically, because, you know, some people eat their kale raw. I prefer it cooked, or kale chips are pretty good. So the bean vegetable soup is simmering, and I'm going to let it simmer for another 8 minutes, I guess. And also the chicken vegetable is simmering, and we let it go for another 10 minutes actually. And then we're going to call them done. And I sometimes don't cook them to their full doneness because I'm often reheating them. And so they're re-cooking, or they're cooking some more. And I hope that you all will stay healthy and eat your vegetables.